Never in my life did I think I was gonna make a video about Shuffle Reborn. What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I wanted to bring to you a video discussing Shuffle Reborn because this was the hot tech of the weekend at the European World Championship qualifiers, but it actually originated at the ARG that took place the weekend before because there were a couple players playing this card and teching it in their Zodiac decks as well, but I think that caught on and a lot of people in Europe, especially those that were playing Zodiac, realized the potential that this card had and adopted it because if you look at the top deck profiles from the event, a lot of the people, especially when you're at the top 16 and above, were maining several copies of Shuffle Reborn. Now, what is all the hype about? Well, if you don't know what Shuffle Reborn does, it is a normal spell card with the following effect. If you control no monsters, target one monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but its effects are negated, also banish it during the end phase. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one card you control, shuffle it into the deck, then draw one card. Also, during the end phase of this turn, banish one card from your hand. You can only use this effect of Shuffle Reborn once per turn. So, the biggest thing that I think why really just how Shuffle Reborn came into the meta and really into Zodiac for the most part in general was mainly the loss of Terratop from the June 12th Forbidden and Limited list. Terratop gave Zodiacs this completely new dimension that could pretty much give you a free outlet to get into your Zodiac monsters, especially if you're going first. If you have no monsters, you bring out the Terratop, and then that pretty much leads into Invoker, and your opponent has to answer this, otherwise you're just gonna get your Zodiac combo off for free. And that was just one of the craziest things about Terratop, but when it got hit on the limited list, you know, Zodiac kind of lost that free summon, so to speak, and it really hurt the deck's potential, especially if it got hit by a card like Solemn Strike, or if its normal summon got stopped, because the only additional extender that the Zodiac deck has is a Zodiac Barrage, and I guess by extension Instant Fusion was as well, but with Norden banned, I mean, Instant Fusion's nowhere to be seen anymore anyway. And when I say extender, I mean a card that allows you to continue your play, but also pretty much relies on you having another card in a certain zone, whether it's on the field, in the graveyard, something like that, to allow you to continue your play. And Shuffle Reborn is just that. It basically grants the Zodiac deck an additional way to summon, but it does it in this really interesting way because, like I said before, Barrage was pretty much the only extender that Zodiac had, and if you open Barrage and no other Zodiac monsters, then Barrage was essentially your starter card just to get your deck going, and otherwise you just don't really have anything to work with. But Shuffle Reborn adds a whole entirely new dimension to the deck in a lot of different ways. The card is incredibly powerful for the Zodiac archetype, whether you're going first or second. And as you guys know, I am very much a fan of cards that allow you to basically do things whether you're going first or second, because that's kind of the downside of trap cards, is that you can't use them if you're going second. Same thing for very specific spell cards if you're going first and vice versa. So Shuffle Reborn is just that. It's very flexible in its application. Now, going first, let's say you're playing your Zodiac Rapier, or really any Zodiac monster for that matter. If your opponent has the Ghost Ogre for your effect of your Rapier, or the effect of your Thoroughblade, then that's going to go through, but now you have Shuffle Reborn because now you no longer control any monsters on the field, and you can special summon that monster back and continue your plays. And the other cool thing about that is as well, since you've baited out the Ghost Ogre, since Ghost Ogre is a once per turn card, you know that you're not going to get Ogre at any other point in your turn, especially if you're going first, which means you pretty much have free range to do whatever you want. Now, you still have to be careful of other hand traps like Max C and things like that, but Ghost Ogre is the biggest one since every deck is pretty much maining 3 copies of Ghost Ogre at the time of me recording this video. Now, going second, Shuffle Reborn just does so much for the deck in so many different ways as well. I already talked about how it stops Ghost Ogre, so if you're going second, you know, Ghost Ogre is a threat, but that's pretty much the least of your worries. You're most likely going to be phasing an opposing Trident, a Solemn Strike, basically all of these cards that are going to just completely wreck your plays and prevent you from going forward and progressing your game state during your turn. But Shuffle Reborn allows you to play into those cards, makes your opponent waste their resources, and allows you to pretty much take control back of the game. And the biggest thing I think that this card plays around is Solemn Strike, which the deck didn't really have a very effective way of doing outside of, you know, having Barrage as well. But having an additional card outside of Barrage now that you have that you can pretty much recur your resource and continue your plays is absolutely huge. Now, the really insane thing about Shuffle Reborn that I still can't believe, Shuffle Reborn is not once per turn, and that is just fucking insane. Now, if you read the text, the second effect, the effect where you actually do the shuffling part, is once per turn, but that's completely irrelevant. The fact that the resurrection effect of Shuffle Reborn is actually, you can use it as many times as you want, there's no once per turn clause, is fucking insane, and here's why. Let me give you a hypothetical situation. Let's say you're going second. You normal summon your copy of Rapier and activate the effect. Let's say you get hit by an opposing Ghost Ogre. You Shuffle Reborn back the Rapier, and you're exactly where you were, you know, before the Ghost Ogre hit your Rat. Now let's say your opponent uses their Trident to pop your Rapier and put it back in the graveyard. If you have a second copy of Shuffle Reborn, you can activate it because now you have no cards on the field again and bring back the Rapier an additional time. Now let's say you overlay for like a Hammer Kong. Let's say it gets hit by Solemn Strike. Well, if you have a third copy of Shuffle Reborn, guess what? You can bring that Rapier back and you are exactly where you were right at the beginning of your turn, except your opponent has now wasted 3 resources to try and kill you. Now sure, you've used 3 copies of Shuffle Reborn, but the fact is, there's only so many cards that your opposing player is going to have when you're going against them to stop your plays. And if you're burning through all these different resources, and if you're able to amass your board of Trident, Emerald, or whatever it is you're trying to achieve, then that puts you in an absolutely advantageous position because then Trident can pop their resources both on your turn and your opponent's turn. Emerald's going to recur resources, allowing you to draw more cards and pretty much set up for when it's their turn again. And it's honestly mind-blowing that a card like this is only once per turn. Now, I understand why, because the fact that you can't control any monsters is a pretty heavy stipulation, and it makes sense in most cases, but Zoodiac is such a weird deck, especially in the mirror match, that you're wanting to just deny your opponent any chance to start their chain of Xyz summons and allow them to go forward and progress with their plays. So it almost actually caters and pretty much facilitates the functionality of a card like Shuffle Reborn and makes this common card out of Dimension of Chaos something extremely, extremely valuable. Now, the other thing I think I want to talk about with Shuffle Reborn is the second effect, because the second effect, the Shuffle effect, while it may not come up as much, I think some people are overlooking how powerful this effect actually is. Now, if you're watching the European World Championship qualifiers, some of you guys might have seen that what's really cool about Shuffle Reborn is that you can essentially shuffle back a flying C that's landed on your field that's preventing you from going forward into your turn. You shuffle it back, you get to draw a card, and even if you have to banish something in the end phase, that's just another resource that you get to dig into, and if you set everything in your hand, then you don't have to banish anything, so that's just the best case scenario. And Shuffle Reborn not only was a +1, but also removed the card that basically completely stifles your plays. And the other thing about that is as well, is I think people are underlooking how really easy and the kind of nuances you can use Shuffle Reborn to kind of modify and really take advantage of the abilities of this card. I want to talk specifically in tandem with a card like Twin Twister. So for example, let's say you're going second and you use Twin Twister to pop 2 of your opposing player's back row. You can discard a Zoodiac monster, then Shuffle Reborn it back since you control no monsters, and then they've lost their back row, and you also still have a normal summon. So if you're able to get to a Broad Bowl search, and if they disrupt you at any other point later on in your combo, you still have a normal summon, which in the case of Zodiac is probably going to be something like a Rapier, maybe even a Ram if you're looking for the protection from the board wipe. So that's absolutely huge that you can not only just neutralize 2 of your opponent's back row, and then you also get a free special summon that doesn't eat your normal. So that's absolutely crazy. But then there's the other way around of looking at it. You can also, let's say you're under Flying C, you can Twin Twister, discard the Shuffle Reborn, and then pop to the opposing player's back row. And because Shuffle Reborn does not have a clause that says that it cannot be used the turn it's sent to the graveyard, you can use the shuffle effect to shuffle back the Flying C or whatever the threat is that was placed on your field, draw a card, and now you're free to go off, and you got to pop 2 of your opponent's back row at the same time. What's also cool about this effect as well is that you don't have to worry about your opposing player's threats, but let's say, you know, you can use something like Zodiac Shockanine, recur one of your Zodiac Xyz monsters from the graveyard, and then you could use the Shuffle Reborn, put it back into your extra deck, draw a card, and then you're back at the exact same place where Shuffle Reborn is not only giving you additional resources, you get to dig deeper into your deck, and even if you have to banish something in the end phase, a lot of the times getting that extra card out of your deck and just giving yourself more options really can help the flexibility of what the Zodiac deck is able to achieve. Now, this card is amazing, but it does have its weaknesses, and I wanted to cover those as well. First off, this card is absolutely dead if you don't have a monster in the graveyard. This isn't like Terror Top where it's amazing turn 1, you can just drop it, go off, do all your crazy bullshit. You need a monster in the graveyard, and if you don't have a monster in the graveyard, this card is absolutely dead, which is I think why you don't see people maxing out on it, because it's a little bit conditional. Although as powerful as it is, it can be rough sometimes if you open a hand of all spells and you don't have a monster in the graveyard, so Shuffle Reborn just becomes an automatic dead card. Now, it's also possibly a dead card as well if you're already ahead in the game, because if you're winning, you're gonna have a field full of monsters. You're gonna have, you know, your Dryadents, your Emeralds, Tornado Dragons, all that crazy stuff, and you're gonna have this Shuffle Reborn just kind of sitting in your hand like, well, what am I exactly supposed to do with this? I mean, it's a nice card if you get board wiped, but if you're ahead on advantage, you want to keep the tempo going, and Shuffle Reborn isn't exactly a card that's going to help you keep the tempo and keep yourself ahead of your opponent. At that point, you're going to wish it was a defensive card, something like maybe Book of Moon, Chalice, Enemy Controller, any of the cards that Zodiac is playing. You're definitely going to wish it was that instead. And the other thing, and I think probably the biggest weakness of Shuffle Reborn, is that it really gets wrecked by Dimensional Barrier. Dimensional Barrier is pretty much the ultimate, I can't answer this card that Zodiac has to deal with, and Shuffle Reborn is another card that does not solve that problem, because even if you Shuffle Reborn back your monster, if your opponent flips Dimensional Barrier, not only are you not going to be able to special summon anything, but that monster is also going to get banished, and you're pretty much just going to be at a complete minus. So it's you want to be very careful when using this card, because Dimensional Barrier is a very large threat, and you can lose a lot of resources if you happen to fall into it. But guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Shuffle Reborn, and if there's any other cool applications. I know we saw a lot of players using it in pure Zodiac. You could possibly use it in true Draco Zodiac as well. Resurrect something like a Zodiac Ram, pop it with Diagram because it's free. So that's a cool interaction as well. But I'm curious what you guys think about the card and any other neat little interactions that maybe go with other decks that I might not have thought of. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video helpful, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.